Today we're going to explore Wayfinder. Wayfinder is a protocol that allows decentralized access to ARIO data via hundreds of gateways within the ARIO network. And basically, there are three ways you can use Wayfinder, either by using the core package, the React package, or the browser extension. And the browser extension is the easiest way to use Wayfinder directly from your browser. But that's a video for another day. Today we're going to talk about the core protocol that powers Wayfinder. And for that, I just prepared a very simple repository here, just one file and package.json, so that you are able to install Wayfinder core. And for that, to just do npm install at r.io/Wayfinder-Core. We're also going to install another package, which is Axios. And by the way, you can use Wayfinder Core in either Node.js environment or a browser environment. And in fact, the React package uses Wayfinder Core under the hood. So what we're going to talk about here today applies for both sides. All right, now that we have our package installed, the first thing we do is to import the create client object, create client here, create Wayfinder client from the Wayfinder core package. And since we are using Node.js here, we can use top level awaits. But first thing first, we initialize Wayfinder. Which is going to be create Wayfinder client. And just as easy as this, we can already use Wayfinder by doing awaits Wayfinder dot resolve URL. So this is going to redirect us to any gateway that is available, any random gateway that is available. And I'm going to add in an RNS name that directs, of course, to my website. So yeah, as easy as that, we already have Wayfinder and we can use it that way. But we shall go deep to see how we can add different parameters to customize our experience depending on our use or our application. Before we run this script, I just need to change one thing here to module, just because we are using modules here. So yeah, if I do node index.js, you should see some logs, and then the redirect URL is right here. As you can see, it's using permagate.io right now, and you can tell it's redirecting me to meridikim.permagate.io rather than me having to like specify which gateway I want to use. But that's just a very, very basic example right there. Moving forward, we're going to see how you can use it in different other ways. Like for example, this create Wayfinder client, you can pass in different types of options to customize your experience however you want it. And for that, I'm just going to install the ARIO SDK to give us access to the hundreds of gateways available in the ARIO network. At the moment of recording this video, there are more than 600 gateways right now. So I'm just going to do npm install at r.io/SDK to install the SDK and have access to all those gateways. All right, now that we have the SDK installed, we need to import it as well. So I'm just going to import ARIO from the SDK and initialize it with mainnet. So I'll do const ARIO is equal to the ARIO instance.mainnet, just because we want to use the mainnet gateways, right? It makes sense. So to initialize, to add parameters to create Wayfinder client, you need to add an object. And the first thing you add is ARIO, which is this instance right here, just so that whatever strategy you use has access to all the gateways in the ARIO ecosystem or in the ARIO network. And so after passing that parameter, the second parameter we can pass is the routing, to have the routing strategy. So you can do routing, and there are actually 5 different routing strategies that we are going to look at in this video. But as you can see here, you decide which one you want: fastest, preferred, random, round robin. There is also static routing strategy that is not here, just because with a static routing strategy, you don't need to have the ARIO mainnet here as specified, and we shall look at all of them. And I think static will be the last one, just because it's very easy to do. So right here, we shall start with the fastest. And fastest routing strategy means you want to use the gateway that responds the fastest. So after choosing the routing strategy, you need now to specify the gateways that you want to use, right? So we have gateway selection, and this we have different types of gateway selection, right? You can choose gateways depending to their performance, to their stake, to their streak, to the most tenured gateway or the top ranked, right? And in this case, we shall just use the highest staked, right? The gateways that have the most stake. We shall have an order, right? And the order is going to be descending order. And we shall also have a limit. Just because we don't want to have many gateways, we shall limit the gateways to 10, just like that. And with that one selection, we have all we need. We shall do node index.js. And as you can see, it first fetches all the gateways, right? It first fetches the 10 gateways that I specified. And as you can see, we have a timeout of 500 milliseconds right here that is there by default. And you can see that 10 gateways with the highest stake that are here. And yeah, at the end here, you can see this is the gateway that has been selected, and my website, my RNS name is being redirected to this gateway. But as you can think of it, there is a scenario where maybe all these gateways don't respond in that time, and that's why you have another parameter that you can add here that is called fallback strategy, right? Fallback strategy, we shall look deep into that later on, but what it does is like, hey, if your first strategy, routing strategy, doesn't work, just fall back to this second strategy or this other strategy. And yeah, these routing strategies can also change. You're like, hey, maybe I don't want these. I want to select random gateways. And again, if you run the same script, let me just clear this so that you can see it clearly. So if you do node index.js like this, you'll see again, it's fetching gateways, right? 10 gateways as specified. I think I specified 10 gateways. Yeah, 10 gateways randomly as specified. And it's redirecting me to this one gateway here. And you can do the same for all these other strategies that are here. If you do it this way, you only have the default parameters or the default configuration for each strategy. But then what happens if you want to customize the strategy a little bit different from what is there default by default? That's what we're going to look at for each strategy and how to customize it. But for most use cases, I feel like you can use the default parameters and you'll be good to go. But in our case here, since it's just for learning purposes, we're going to have all the different strategies and look at how they work. We're also going to have different gateways providers, right? So to show you the gateways providers available, we shall have static provider. And with a static provider, you don't even need to use ARIO like this, right? Because you can just create it, new static gateways provider. Yeah, this way. And what you do in this case, you provide the gateways that you want to be used. And I can say maybe I want to use HTTPS ariv.net and HTTPS permagate.io this way, right? And with this, we can just do one thing here. We can delete, probably delete all of these and just say gateways. Oh, not here, sorry. So what you do with the providers, you add the providers to the routing strategies, and then you can pass the routing strategies right here. So for example, if we do static provider, and then we can have a strategy like, let me see. Yeah, random. Yeah, let's say random strategy, which is a new random strategy here like this. And then what you do here is you pass the gateways provider. Gateways provider is going to be static provider. And then down here on the Wayfinder create client, you now pass your routing strategy, not routing. So passing routing strategy as random strategy comes down to the same as passing routing routing as random. But then the difference between these two is with routing random here, you're going with the default configuration. But with routing strategy, you have a chance to customize your routing strategy, as you can see right here, because I can add as many gateways as I want here. But then we're not going to go deep into static provider because in my opinion, I feel like this doesn't really make use of all the gateways within the ARIO network. So we're going to switch to the next provider, which is network provider. So network provider. And for the network provider, that's when you really, really make use of the gateways within the ARIO ecosystem. And yeah, so what you do here, again, you do network providers and you pass in the ARIO object or the ARIO instance as ARIO that we have already there. And yeah, now you can add things like limit, again, limit 10 as we saw, or you can do limit 20, but I'm going to do limit 5 just for the sake of this tutorial. And you can add the order here, sort order. So the sort order, you have ascending or descending order. I don't know which one should we choose. Let's go with ascending. And another thing you can add here is you can add a custom filter, right? And the custom filter says, hey, from all the gateways that I've just specified, probably return me the gateways that have just joined. Yeah, I think that's how it's supposed to be. I'm not exactly sure with the filter. You'd probably have to check with on the docs, which is docs.ar.io, right? So you can check here on how to specify your filters, but just know there is a filter function that you can also have. For this tutorial, we're not going to use the filter. I feel like these here are really enough. We are going to add another thing here that is really, really important, which is the sort by, right? And we saw this down again earlier on, and you have these different parameters. You want to sort them by the operator stake or the delegated stake. It depends on your use case here, but we have different options here. Again, we shall go with operator stake as before. And yeah, we have the limit, we have everything. And now we have the network provider. And the providers, all they do is they return the gateways that the network strategies are going to use, or the routing strategies, not the network strategies, the routing strategies. So this network provider here, for example, is going to look through all the gateways in the network and sort them by operator stake in an ascending order. And it's going to return only 5 of those ones, right? It says, hey, these 5 gateways are the ones you're going to perform your routing strategies on. For example, for this random strategy, it's going to only select randomly among those 5. For a fastest ping, it's going to ping those 5 only. And that's the power of it. So you make sure you customize your gateway's provider according to your needs or how you want them to respond or react. And if you don't want to go through this hassle, you can just use the default as I showed you earlier on. Rather than using routing strategy, you can use routing random, right? But this is just to give you the level of customization that you may have depending on your use case. So now that you have the provider, we pass the provider here to the strategy, and we're going to have network provider. Yeah, network provider like that. And then what you're going to do is to uncomment this routing strategy to have random strategy, but we're receiving an error. Yeah, and as you can see, the error is coming from the fact that we need to put here a comma. But then you can't also provide routing and routing strategy. One would override the other one. So we're going to leave this aside and delete it and have this other one instead. So to make this simple, I'm just going to do the easiest thing to see which gateway Wayfinder is going to show us. So rather than doing wayfinder.resolve URL, I think we can do maybe the request. Not really. Let's stick to this, right? Let's stick to this just so that we can see how, what it output every time, and we can also see the logs to see what happened, how the strategy worked, and how the gateways providers worked. So with that said, let's run this again. Do npm Oh, not sorry, not npm run dev. I think I've used a lot of front end work that yeah. So you do node index.js again. And you can see here what happened is gateways were selected randomly. And then my URL is right here. I think, in fact, just so that we don't see this as a long, big URL, we'll be doing this const URL is going to be equal to await this, right? Just this way. And then what we are going to log here all the times is going to be the href. So we shall do url.href like this, just so that we see it clearly. So I clear this, I do again node index.js. Yeah, and it's fetching gateways. You can see the gateways that have been selected randomly, and you can see the gateway that is getting used here is A01 Labs, and it's the last gateway in this gateway selection. Let me count the number of gateways we are receiving. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And as you can, oh, wait, no, something is wrong. We specified here 5 gateways, right? The limit, we specified the limit to 5, but then the limit on the other side is being set to 10. That's strange. Let's try to see what happens. Oh yeah, you can see starting to fetch gateways from ARIO network, and this is actually wrong because it's sorting differently from what we specified. So let's try to debug what happened here. And yeah, this is, I think, the beauty of doing these things is sometimes you break them and you get the chance to debug. So let's understand what happened behind the scenes and why our gateways provider is not picked as it was supposed to be picked or as we expected it. Okay, I see where the error comes from, and here's the problem, right? So we have our network provider that we initiated with ARIO here, but we are still passing the ARIO object to our Wayfinder client. So one is overriding the other. The thing we need to do is to remove this. So after removing this, we remain with the routing strategy only. And if we do this again, node index.js, yeah, you will see now the strategy being used is a random strategy with our network gateways provider. And yeah, the logger is on there. And then at the end of it, the selected random gateway is promagate.io. And yeah, the resolve URL is right here. All right. So this will keep changing as we change the routing strategy. Moving on, so that is random strategy. The second strategy we're going to look at is the fastest ping, right? Fastest ping here, which is going to be new fastest ping routing strategy. And what we do here, we specify a couple of things, but they all look similar to what we did here. We have gateways provider, and we shall use again the network provider, network gateways provider. Now, a couple of other things we can specify here is the timeout. Yeah, we have the timeout here in milliseconds. We can probably say, hey, we want the timeout to be 1,000 milliseconds, and that will do the job. So here you also have the ability to customize your timeout in milliseconds, which is different compared to if we are only passing routing as fastest. We don't have all this extra power that we can do the customization. So we pass this right here, fastest ping, as the strategy to the routing strategy. And if we run this, just do node index.js again. Yeah, you'll see the strategy has changed here. We have the fastest ping routing strategy, and that timeout is right here. So yeah, and you can also see how gateways are being pinged over time with the logging. And yeah, we have all gateways failed to respond. And this can happen, like the gateways you're trying to reach can all not respond in this timeout that you specified here. I think if we increased here, we can see the response. Let's try. We do node index.js again. And I'm sure, yeah, as you can see, they're all replying now because we've put 10,000 milliseconds. But then if you want to keep this, there is another thing we call the fallback strategy, right? Here in Create Wayfinder, you can say, hey, I have my routing strategy, but if my routing strategy fails, I can also have a fallback strategy, right? So we can do, as we had, 1,000 milliseconds, and you're like, hey, my fallback strategy is going to be the random strategy, right? So if this primary strategy fails for some reasons, we can fall back to the random strategy, for example. So yeah, that is a nice thing to be aware of, that you can also have your main strategy and your fallback strategy. And I think there is something similar that is actually introducing me to the next strategy we have to look at. So I'll have to remove this for now, and now look at the next strategy, which is I think it's called preferred with fallback. Yeah. So it's called preferred with fallback. And we are going to initiate that that class fallback. Preferred with fallback. Yeah, this is the name. Preferred with fallback routing strategy. Oh, that's a very long name, but it's a very nice strategy, right? So in this strategy, you specify your preferred gateway. Maybe you'll say, hey, I want all my requests to be sent to probably permagate.io. But if that gateway fails, this you have to do this way, yeah. And if that gateway fails, I want to fall back to this strategy. What strategy should we fall back on? Let's fall back on random strategy, right? So this sort of gives you an extra guard just in case, because this gateway for some reason might be slow, might not respond in time, and you can fall back on a different strategy. So that gives you that extra feeling of safety while people are using your application, or in whichever use case you're using Wayfinder. So here we're going to do this strategy to preferred with fallback, right? Like that. And so you do, again, let me first clear the console, and I do index.js, and this should work. So yeah, as you can see, it's attempting to connect to this gateway first, my preferred gateway, to see if my preferred gateway worked. If it didn't work, we fall back to a random strategy. And this is a perfect example right here. Attempting to connect to preferred gateway, failed to connect to preferred gateway, which means we are falling back to the alternative strategy. And for some reason, yeah, the preferred gateway is this, and it timed out, and we fell back to the routing strategy, the random routing strategy, and it's the same gateway. So yeah, this has to be very interesting. But I guess the first request failed, so we fell back to the alternative strategy, and the second request went through. Yeah, which is actually very interesting. So how many have we covered so far? We have 1, 2, 3. Oh, the fourth strategy is the round robin strategy. Let me just do round robin, and it's going to be new round robin routing strategy. And for those who don't know, this what the round robin strategy is, you can just Google that and you'll find a lot more about that. I think it helps a lot more into like load balancing and all that type of things. And here you can either pass your gateways if you have gateways that you want to specify. You see the same way we specified gateways here. Or you can pass a gateways provider, right? And your gateways provider is either a static gateways provider or network gateways provider. So in my case, I'm going to use the network gateways provider. How did I name it? Network provider. And this is the network gateways provider. But you don't pass two of them at the same time, right? Because they all do the same things. So if you pass both of them at the same time, it's going to fail. Now that we have that, we shall just do round robin here, and again attempt again to do the same thing to see how it works. And the good thing, we have the logs here, so you can see how things go step after step. Just to confirm it's the one, you can see round robin setting here. and then loading gateways from the provider. And it has some default parameters here, and you can customize those parameters, by the way, depending on how you want to use it. And the selected gateways, it was this by the deep.store. I don't think most people know about this gateway, and this is the beauty of Wayfinder. You don't even have to know the gateway up front, because there are 600 plus gateways at this point. I think we might end up at 1,000 gateways very soon. So you have all this power of decentralized cloud, but most people most of the times use arif.net, yet there are more and more gateways coming to the ecosystem, and this was the need to bring Wayfinder, because right now you can access from by the deep.store that you probably didn't know about. So lastly, we're going to see the last strategy, and this is the static strategy, right? And static strategy is just a static routing strategy, and here you provide one gateway, and the gateway probably is going to be, let's try with arif.net here, this way, and then we pass static. This is outputting an error. I don't know why. Let's try to debug that. Expected set. Oh, it's a reserved keyword. So static routing. Let me rename that to static routing. Same here. But don't get confused. Static routing is different from static provider or static gateways provider, right? So don't get confused about those two. They are two different things. For this routing strategy here, all requests are going to be going to arif.net. So I think if we do a different thing here, no, actually that will come out in a different video. Let me not give you a lot of complicated strategies here, because we shall cover that in an upcoming video. So now that we have static routing, if we try to do this again, you can just do node.index.js. And you'll see my request is going straight to arif.net, and you can confirm because I'm using static routing strategy. So those are the 5 basic strategy or major strategy or existing strategies. And we also have the 2 network provider strategies. With that said, we have actually covered 2 network providers, network gateways providers, and 5 strategies. But then we have something that we call composition that we shall have to see in another video, how to compose these strategies with things like fallback strategies and all that. Just to recap all we have covered 2 providers. We have the static gateways provider and the network gateways provider. We also covered 5 routing strategies. We have random routing strategies, fastest ping routing strategies. We have preferred with fallback routing strategy, round robin routing strategy, and static routing strategy. Those are the major ones that you can customize if you would like to. And if you don't want to customize them, again, as I said, you can just do routing, and select one of these and use the default parameters. But I had to show you how you can also do the customization in case you need that in your application or in your use case. So the next video, we're going to see how you can do composition, right? And things like caching and all that. So stay tuned for the second video. We shall reuse these same gateways and this same knowledge that we have here, but see how we can do even more complex stuffs with Wayfinder, which is awesome. And I'm very, very excited to see you all use Wayfinder in your projects and in your applications. And if you need more information about Wayfinder, again, the link is docs.ar.io. Let me just add that so that you can see docs.ar.io. You'll find more and more information there. And happy to see what you guys do with this very, very awesome protocol.